Kyrie eleison, Kyrie eleison, Christe eleison, Christe eleison, Kyrie eleison, Kyrie eleison.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's approximately 1:45 on Sunday afternoon, the 23rd of February. It is a beautiful day in the state of Georgia. The sun is out shining, and after I get done with this recording, I need to step out and get a couple of errands done, so I'm looking forward to that. I wanted to put out this video out. Normally I would have done it on Monday, but I wanted to get it out today because the topic itself is just something that I'm not very comfortable with as a taxpayer. And unfortunately, this is once again another illustration of the problem that we have within our government. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So, first of all, let me start by going and saying this young lady over here is Kelly Loeffler. Kelly previously had served as the senator from the great state of Georgia, which is where I'm from, and was recently confirmed by the Senate and sworn in as the new administrator of the Small Business Administration. As you can tell by their seal, they were formed in 1953, which would have been the administration of Dwight David Eisenhower, the first administration. And the whole idea of the Small Business Administration was for a way that government could get involved in a positive direction in creating small businesses. Now, what the Small Business Administration does not do, it is not a bank. So therefore, if I had an idea for a business, let's say, and what I would do is I wanted to get it off the ground. Typically, I would have to go to the bank, get some sort of capital if I didn't have capital of my own to use. Well, what I would do in working with the Small Business Administration is I would go and complete several forms there that describe the business, how it's going to work, how it's going to earn money, more importantly, how quickly can I pay this loan back, depending on the needs of capital for my business would be. Then, if the Small Business Administration liked what they saw, then what they would do in turn is they would then go and work with several banking institutions and basically say, we've reviewed it, we're good for that. Now, the loans that I would have would be with the bank itself, but the SBA would be the guarantor of those loans. So therefore, if somehow I go belly up or whatever, then the loans would default, and then they would be responsible for that. So again, they want to be extremely judicious in terms of how they're spending. Again, as a guarantee, it's your tax money at risk. It's just a different way. Well, the challenge is that Ms. Loeffler was, as I said before, served as a senator, and she ran in her bid to get reelected against this gentleman over here, the Reverend Raphael Warnock. Now, Reverend Warnock is also the senior pastor at Ebenezer Baptist Church here in Atlanta, which is where Martin Luther King was done. He is avowed a liberal, as Ms. Loeffler is conservative. So needless to say, their election was kind of unique because you have two minority groups, a female versus an African American. And what Ms. Loeffler was trying to do in her debates with Reverend Warnock was to paint him as this radical. And, I tried to get at least a clip of their debates. I couldn't find one because of copyright rules, which I've already been dinged on by YouTube, so I don't want to go there again. But the whole point is that it was very cringeworthy. And I say that, I don't normally use the word cringe, but it was very cringeworthy to watch these two debates. But it was a very close election, and I'll show you the results over here. But the results itself was, it was a 51-49, which is about as close as you can get. It was about 89,000 vote difference. And this is in a state of, at this point, nearly 4.5 million votes cast statewide. So needless to say, but Raphael Warnock, now, he is going to have to defend his seat relatively soon because the other senator from Georgia, named John Ossoff, when he was elected to his term, he was elected to a full 6-year term. Mr. Ossoff is still relatively young, so I'm sure that he will probably run for the Senate once again before he considers some sort of higher office, but that's the way it worked out. So in the state of Georgia, we went from two solidly Republican senators to now two solid Democrats. Okay. But here's the point of our video here today. On January 20th, the President of the United States went and issued many executive orders. Now, for those of you who don't understand the difference between an executive order and legislation, legislation starts either in the House of Representatives. If it's a money bill, it always starts in the House of Representatives because the House has got the constitutional duty of having the power of the purse. But other legislation can start in the Senate. It is then, once it's passed in the Senate, then it gets sent over to the House. The House will deliberate it, but at the end of the day, both versions, both the House and the Senate, must agree word for word. And in order for that to be done, then it's got to be both voted in the affirmative. So it's got to have at least 218 votes in the House, and in the Senate, it's got to have at least 51 votes in the Senate in order to pass. Assuming that that's been reached, then the legislation is sent over to the president to either sign into law, or he can veto it, or he can go and let it lie latent, and then after a certain amount of time, it may become law. Okay. The difference between that and executive order is the president can issue, by virtue of his authority as the president of the United States and as the chief executive of the executive branch or the chief magistrate, he can issue certain directives by the power of his own authority, and this was one of them. This was the return to in-person to work directive that he signed on the 20th in the Oval Office. It's probably one of the first ones that he signed. And basically, as you can see over here, it directs that the heads of all departments and agencies in the executive branch only, for obvious reasons. He could not mandate this in the legislative branch because that's within the purview of the Congress, or within the federal court system because that's within the federal judicial branch, which is headed by the Chief Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court. So only in the executive branch, basically ordering everyone to return to work at their physical stations. Now, the challenge is for a number of reasons, is that some people there may not be a federal office. Because of COVID, they elected to move somewhere else. They were able to work remotely, and from that standpoint. But let's say, assuming that the vast majority of the workers could go and report into their office. Now, again, this was because of COVID, and everyone was crazy that, we're passing this, but now COVID is done and gone. Everyone's gotten their shots, and they're still working remotely. Now, there's a new administration in town. So this gentleman over here is a gentleman named Everett Woodhull. And Mr. Woodhull was the acting director or administrator of the Small Business Administration. Now, what that means is this, is that per political tradition in the United States, especially when you have a transition from one party to the other, so now the Democrats are out, the Republicans are in, all Democratic appointees tender their resignation effective the 20th of January, which they are accepted by the new president. The new president then has the power to appoint people within an acting role. In this case, Mr. Woodhull was appointed as the acting director. Now, he has the authority of the office because his authority is not derived by his own. It is derived by the President of the United States to act in that capacity. Okay? So therefore, when he signs any directives within his agencies, his title, his letterhead will always, on the bottom, where we call the endorsement, will always include his name, in this case, Everett M. Woodhull, if that's the correct pronunciation. And then underneath it would be Acting Administrator, Small Business Administration. Okay. Now, the other thing I discovered about Mr. Woodhull, and this is from his Wikipedia page, is this, is that Mr. Waddell served in the United States Army. It does not give the rank in which he served, but he is a veteran. So therefore, he would be fully aware of the concept of command and control, delineation of authority, etc. Okay, so Ms. Loeffler was just recently confirmed, and I believe she was sworn in, I think, a couple of days ago. Today's the 23rd, so I think she was maybe sworn in on Friday. Okay, now she recently just went and made a trip to her office. The office now, which she has been confirmed, she has gone in and been selected by President Trump, confirmed by the Senate under the Advise and Consent Clause within that, now in the SBA. This is what she found. Now, she posted this on X. It was actually a video, but again, I didn't have access to it, and I didn't want to get hit by YouTube. But this is a picture, and again, I am attributing this. This is Small Business Administration Kelly, which is her, Kelly Loeffler, on X. And it's deserted. There is literally no one there at all. Now, this is where I get a little bit tight under the jaws. Because again, going back to Mr. Waddell, because he was the acting administrator, from January 20th, he could have put out the order under his own authority, pursuant to the orders of the President of the United States. Now, I do not know whether or not that was done. But my whole point is this, is that if you're the acting director and you know that your new boss is coming in, there's no reason why your boss should have came into an empty office. He should have gone and issued that directive under the authority that was given to him. And again, this is the authority that is given in the Constitution through the President of the United States. And there is no reason why his now new boss should have walked into an empty office. I can solemnly assure you that if I had been in Mr. Waddell's position, things would have been different. I would have not only sent out a directive, I would have sent out a video that would have gone out to every single person in there saying, pursuant to the orders of the President of the United States, you are now directed to come into the office on the next working day. For those of you who do not report to your sign or cannot because of logistics or whatever, you need to contact my office directly, and there should have been a list given to say to do that. Now, I don't know if that was done. If it was done, fine. But to have your boss walk through that and empty, it was such a slap in the face. And I think that this is just another instance where the bureaucracy is acting like a petulant child. There is no other way that you can go and do this. Again, I've been an officer in the Air Force, and I've worked in the civilian world for 35 plus years. If I had received a directive from my CEO basically saying that on this day you will wear a polka dot tie, and the source of the polka dot tie is this person over there, and I expect you, I would have worn it. I mean, it would have been ridiculous, and I guess it would have been a chuckle, but I would have been respectful enough to the office of the chief executive officer to say, fine, sir, I'm in compliance. And that's not being mindless or stupid or, it's just the fact of the matter is that we are living, and this is really the crux of the matter, is that we are living in an age where I'm a child of the 60s. I was born in 1960. Okay. I lived the 60s. Okay. Everyone can go and talk about what, the only thing they can remember about the 60s is what they can see online. I lived it, okay? But my whole point is I think that one of the greatest effects, and it's not just in American culture, we found it in the Catholic Church as well, is a pure reaction to authority. And that people, you will say, non serviam. I will not serve. Well, you know who else said non serviam? The devil did. There's that, I believe that's a favorite quote from Dante, it is better to rule in hell than to serve in heaven, right? Everyone wants to be in charge. Everyone wants everyone else to obey you, but you will not obey. And I think that this is one of the things where this would never have been tolerated. I don't think it even would have. I mean, if John Kennedy, again, it's been 60 years, over 60 years, but this would never have happened. And if it had happened, that person would have been drummed out of office and never served again in a public capacity. But now we live in a society where it is cool, to give pick the finger of your choice. I'm not going to do it on video, but I mean, pick the finger of your choice to authority. But yet, if we are the people in authority, we are mystified that people will not, cooperate with us. I mean, I hate to use the word obey, but obey is kind of the right thing. Again, if I work for someone, if I'm deriving my paycheck from someone, that person is afforded a certain level of obedience. Now, will I do, going back in my military, I mean, will I go and obey an unlawful order? No, I will not. I will never obey an order that is immoral, illegal, unethical. Okay, it's not going to happen. But there are protections that are afforded to that, to do that. But when you do have a directive that is lawful, ethical, and legally binding, then you should obey it. You are obligated to obey it. If not, then don't work for that organization. And I think that, unfortunately, there are a lot of people that are finding out that there are ramifications. Now, for those people that were fired because of, probation or whatever, that's a totally different deal. I'm not going to comment on that. All I'm saying is that if you were in that organization and you got a directive like that from the President of the United States, okay, I don't know what you think that you need to have, that it's, you've got to get a personal invitation from 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. No, I think in most instances an email is sufficient. You get an email, you're part of that organization, it tells you specifically what you will need to do. Now, again, if you couldn't because you moved 300 miles away or whatever, that's fine. Then, you work through that. But I'm saying if you live, let's say, if you worked in D.C. and you live in Arlington, Virginia, sorry, you have no excuse. You don't. You don't. There is no way that you're going to convince me as a taxpayer that you, quote unquote, have a special circumstance. You go into work. And if you don't go into work, then you're going to get fired. So I just wanted to put that out there because, again, I just getting a little fed up with all these people that, saying, I can't, I won't. Really not, I can't. It's I won't. I will not. Again, non serviam. I will not serve. Fine. You don't want to serve. You don't have to work here anymore. And by your very actions, you determine your career. You determine your career. So, again, enjoy the rest of your Sunday. And we'll see you on the web real soon. Bye.